For this video, we're going to be adding and subtracting with measurements. So our first example is an addition problem, and we want to make sure everything's lined up going down here like this. So YD represents yards, so those units are lined up. FT represents feet, so those units are lined up. And IN represents inches, and so everything's lined up going down. So now that I'm ready, I can go ahead and add, starting from the right. 10 plus 8 is 18, and we'll label those inches. And the feet, 3 plus 1 is 4. We'll label those FT, feet. And my yards, 6 plus 3 is 9 yards. And so we want to now make sure that this answer is simplified using the units that were given in the original problem, yards, feet, and inches. And so to see if it's simplified, I want to start here with the smallest unit, which is 18 inches, and we'll work our way up here to yards. And so 18 inches. Let's go ahead and pull that off to the side. 18 inches. What I want to do is ask myself, from going from inches to feet, I want to ask myself, well, how many inches is 1 foot? And so 1 foot represents 12 inches. And so I ask myself, is 18 inches bigger than 12 inches? And that answer is yes. That answer is yes. So 18 is bigger than 12. So that means what I can do is convert 18 inches and simplify it so that we write it with the amount of feet. So to do this, all I need to do is take the 12 inches, which represents 1 foot, and divide it into 18. 12 divides into 18 one time. So that 1 means that there's 1 foot. And that makes sense because 18 is bigger than 12. So it's kind of like you're taking 12 inches away from the 18 inches. And so you end up with 1 foot. So 1 times 12 is 12. And when I subtract this, 18 minus 12 is 6. I get a remainder of 6. And that remainder is how many inches I have left after I take 1 foot away from 18 inches. So if I take 12 away from 18, I'm left with 6 inches left. So this is the simplified form for 18 inches. I converted inches back into feet and inches. So let's go ahead and write that down. I can cancel out to my 18 inches and write now 6 inches. So that's taking its place. And then I can write 1 foot, and I'll label that directly underneath my foot columns to keep everything lined up. And now I'm ready to add. And so my 18 inches, I crossed it out and I substituted that in with 1 foot and 6 inches. Now I'm ready to go ahead and add and reconfigure it here again. So I end up with 6 inches. Feet, when I add that up, I have 4 feet plus 1 feet, that's 5 feet. And I still have 9 yards. I haven't done anything yet with the yards. So I simplified the inches. Now what I want to do is simplify the feet here. So let's go ahead and give ourselves some more space. And I have 5 feet. And what I want to do, let's write that down, 5 feet. I want to ask myself, I'm going from feet to yards. So yards here. How many feet is 1 yard? And so 1 yard represents 3 feet. We'll write FT here, so FT. And so 1 yard represents 3 feet. So is 5 feet bigger than 3 feet? And that answer is yes. So that means we can convert 5 feet into yards. So let's go ahead and do that. To do that, we just need to divide 3 feet into 5 feet. So 3 divides into 5 1 time. So that means 1 yard here. So it's kind of like I take 3 feet away from 5 feet. And when I take that 3 feet, that represents 1 yard. So 1 times 3 is 3. And when I subtract that, I end up with a leftover or a remainder of 2 feet. So this represents 1 yard and 2 feet. So 1 yard and 2 feet is the simplified version of 5 feet. All right, so what I can do is go ahead and cross out 5 feet. And I had a leftover of 2 feet, or a remainder of 2 feet. So I'll plug that in here. And then I'll line up. I had 1 yard. And let's revisit what we did here. 5 feet is the equivalent, or the same thing as 1 yard and 2 feet. So now I'm ready to go ahead and add again. And so 6 inches isn't being added to anything, so that comes down. And then I have 2 feet. That comes down also. And then I need to add up my yards here, and 9 plus 1 is 10 yards. So I'm done because everything is simplified, yards, feet, and inches. And that's my answer. Let's go ahead and take a look at one more example. And this time it's a subtraction problem. And we want to make sure everything's lined up in units. So we have mm represents meters and cm represents centimeters. So everything's lined up. And now I'm ready to go ahead and subtract. So I can subtract starting off here from the right. And so I'll pull that off to the side. 5 minus 7. And so we cannot subtract those values because 5 is smaller than the 7. So what I need to do is use my subtraction principles, which means to borrow. So I need to borrow here from the meters. I'm going to borrow from the 12. And if I borrow 1 from the 12, meaning 1 meter, I end up with 11 meters here. And so I'm going to borrow 1 meter. So I need to ask myself, because I'm going from meters down over here to centimeters. So how many centimeters is 1 meter? And so we're using the metric system for this example. And so we have to think about our metric system tables. So if we have meters and we want to get to centimeters, we have to cross over decimeters. So we'll write dm here for decimeters. So to get to meters to centimeters, we need to move 1 place, 2 places. So if I take my 1 meter and the decimals over here off to the right, I need to move it 2 places. 1, so put a 0. 2, put another 0. So I end up with 100 centimeters. So if I borrow 1 meter, I have to carry over 100 centimeters. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to take that 100 centimeters and I can add it to the 5 centimeters we have here. So truly now we have 100 plus 5, that's 105 minus 7. Well, now that's definitely a bigger number than 7. We can go ahead and subtract those values. So let's go ahead and subtract, and we still can't subtract 7 from 5, so we need to borrow here from the 1. And so the 1 is gone, and now here this comes over and we get a 10, and we need to borrow from the 10. So when we borrow from the 10 here, this now becomes 10 becomes a 9, and the 5 becomes a 15. So truly it's 15 minus 7, and 15 minus 7 is 8. And then we have a 9 is not being subtracted from anything, so a 9 comes down. So we end up with 98. 98, and these were centimeters. And then when I subtract the meters, 11 minus 9, we could actually subtract 11 minus 9 because 11 is bigger, so 11 minus 9 is 2 meters. So 11 meters minus 9 meters is 2 meters. And then I had to carry over one of the meters, which represents the same thing as 100 centimeters, to the 5. So I had 105 centimeters minus 7 centimeters, ended up with 98 centimeters. And you want to keep the answer with the units that you're given. So my answer is 2 meters and 98 centimeters. And so that is our answer. We can make sure it's reduced in its simplest form using the units given. And so we have 98 centimeters. And that number is not bigger than 100, so we can't simplify 98 centimeters or make it into meters. So we stop, and that's my answer. And so that is two different problems, one being addition and one being subtraction.